A lot of people, I think, are in struggling to see how they think of themselves. And a lot of that struggle then is competition. And unfortunately, there's no way to measure how much love you have or how kind you are. I mean, there probably are ways to measure this stuff, but not so precisely. But what's precise is how many dollars you have. So a lot of people have sort of linked their worth as a human to their net worth in terms of their assets. And then that's a competition with other people. And so people who, what we've noticed in charity is that the people who have the least amount of money give away the largest percentage of their resources. And the people that have more money to give away a smaller percentage of their resources. So I think in some ways people lose track of what life is really about and focus it on this artificial concept of how much money they have. So, and then it's also a question of what you think you need for yourself. So I was fortunate kind of at an early age to recognize that if you have enough food and shelter, if you have your basic survival needs covered, then you have the freedom to do whatever you want, even if it doesn't fit within the world's economic system. So when I was 18 in 1972, I decided that I would focus my life on psychedelics, and I would try to become an underground psychedelic therapist, and I would go through my own psychedelic psychotherapy, and that was for a job that didn't really exist. But I knew my parents would not let me starve and would cover my food, even, and I knew they were sort of left-wing liberals, and they would care that I was trying to improve people's mental health. So I think a lot of people, though, have a list of needs and wants that's way exaggerated in terms of what they really need. And so therefore they're not so comfortable giving away resources. One of the things that the Pineapple Fund said on their website is when you have enough money, money doesn't matter. And I think that's right, but what is enough? Who decides what's enough? And so I think there's kind of a sadness in this acquisitiveness, greed ways. And in fact, I'll share a story. My wife, Lynn, worked for the World Council of Churches in Geneva. They're sort of like the liberal version, the Protestant liberal version of the Vatican. And so they were a lot of religious-based social activists, but they weren't really fundamentalists. And so they reinterpreted a lot of the miracle stories in the Bible. And one of them was about generosity. So the miracle story in the Bible is, at one point, one of them is where Jesus is with a whole bunch of people. This is around the time of the Sermon on the Mount, and what he's able to do is multiply the loaves and the fishes so that there was just food for a few people, and then all of a sudden, through miraculous intervention of God, these things magically multiplied, and now there was enough food for everybody. And so the Bible writers, the church, wants you to believe that this meant that Jesus had these supernatural powers. And so Lynn and her friends at the World Council reinterpreted this miracle to say that the Sermon on the Mount, the talks that Jesus gave, were so inspiring to people about collectively taking care of each other, about sharing, that they pulled out all the food that they'd been hoarding, and then lo and behold, there was enough for everybody. And that the real miracle is that he inspired people to generosity. And I think when you look at the miracle in that way, that's something that we're all called to do, to be more generous, to help people that have less, to ease pain and suffering. But when you turn it into a supernatural magic trick of multiplying loaves and fishes, well, you don't have to be generous, because I can't do that. I don't have to, it takes the obligation to be generous off of each one of us, and it actually dilutes the power of the story. So I think the message of Jesus, when you wrap it into supernatural miracles, in a way, maybe it, makes people think, they're more likely to be religious. But I think it actually is a harmful thing, because it takes away the moral imperative on each one of us to be generous.